America ranks number 1 in civilian gun ownership per person. Yemen ranks number 2. Not China, not Russia, Yemen. So if Yemen is that armed, what do gun laws even mean there today? Chapter 1. Gun laws before the law. If you want to understand Yemen and guns, delete one assumption, that the modern state is the source of rules. In Yemen, weapons were part of life long before a strong central government could enforce much. Imagine centuries of trade routes and on-again, off-again battles. For a long time, a Yemeni man carried a jambia, the curved dagger, as identity, status, and honor. And in many places, tribal customs mattered more than whoever claimed the capital. Customs shaped what was allowed, what was disrespect, and how conflicts got handled. Then modern firearms spread across the globe, and the balance changed with neighboring countries. Regional conflict and strategic trade routes kept Yemen in blast radius. And with that, the culture continued to embrace firearms as a means to live. The Yemeni people come from a long line of warriors and have always been known for their love of weaponry. With their famous open gun markets and gun shops with all the AK-style rifles you could ever want. Today, they're still embroiled in a civil war that ignited over a decade ago. The humanitarian crisis is catastrophic. Economic collapse has left millions hungry and displaced, with a near total breakdown of healthcare and infrastructure. So in a country like this, the real gun law starts with one question: who controls the road you're standing on? Chapter 2. Yemen gun laws on paper. In Yemen, there are two kinds of rules: the rules on paper and the rules people actually live under. On paper, Yemen has a national gun law dating back to the early 1990s and later attempts, especially in the 2000s, to restrict public carry in major cities. But modern Yemen doesn't have one enforcement system. So the same national law gets interpreted through two power structures. In the north, areas run by the Houthis. In the south, areas run by the internationally recognized government, the Presidential Leadership Council, the PLC. That's why guns are governed by power, relationships, and consequences first, and paperwork second. And now that you understand the split, we can talk about who actually holds the guns and who holds the power. Chapter 3. The Power Pyramid. If you want to understand guns in Yemen, don't start with the numbers. Start with who has power and who doesn't. Yemen's power structure often looks like a pyramid. At the top, we got security forces and armed units. And below that, we got organized armed groups and militias. Those are more mobile and spread out. They go town to town. But below that, we got tribal networks and local power structures. They are society's glue. Then you got ordinary civilians, especially outside major cities. Young and old, it doesn't matter. This is the massive armed base of the pyramid. So civilians often listen to the tribal leaders, and the tribal leaders act as the liaison to the militias and armed groups. And they usually get their orders from either the Houthis or PLC, depending on where you're at. But ignore the viral 50 to 60 million guns claims. Serious estimates still put it in the millions, which is still insane per capita. But here's the key point. Most guns doesn't mean, quote unquote, equal power. It means weapons follow influence. So when the Houthis control an area, their rules are the rules. When the PLC controls an area, their rules are the rules. And where control is contested, the rules are inconsistent, and that's where people get hurt. Now that you understand the pyramid, we can finally talk about the two firearm realities: Houthi gun rules and the PLC gun rules. Chapter 4. Houthi. Control is the law. Now let's talk about the north. In much of the northwest, including Sana'a, the Houthis function like the government on the ground. So here's the first correction. There isn't one neat consolidated Houthi gun law you can pull up like Article 1 through 50. What you can sometimes find in writing is a patchwork, like directives or circulars from Houthi-run security and interior structures, checkpoint instructions, and local crackdowns, especially around cities. So it's not reliably published as one clean legal code. So if someone asks, what are the Houthi gun laws? The honest answer is, it's not one statute, it's a system. Now, here's where the UN comes in, because I want to be precise. The UN doesn't say the Houthis are anti-civilian gun ownership. What UN reporting does show is the Houthis operate as de facto authorities in areas they control, meaning they run governance and enforcement structures that shape daily life. So when we talk about Houthi gun rules, we're not quoting a single law book, okay? We're describing how a de facto authority typically maintains control. And that usually looks like this. Public weapons behavior gets managed, movement gets monitored, and the checkpoint becomes the real interpreter of the law. So the practical rule setup is simple. Who you are matters. If you're connected, you pass. If you're not, you get delayed, searched, disarmed, or detained. And that's why they squeeze gun markets in cities. Not because guns are evil, because open markets mean guns outside their control. It's a power problem. Now we need to talk about the nationally recognized government of Yemen, the PLC. Are they any better or just different? Chapter 5, PLC, Containment is Law. On the PLC side, you can actually find written orders, ministerial notices, security directives, local enforcement plans. But it still isn't one clean PLC gun code. It's the national framework, plus zone rules from whoever holds the street. And in early January 2026, the PLC made their strategy explicit in Aden. The Interior Ministry issued a written warning. Stop unauthorized weapons distribution. Stop unauthorized transport. Stop unauthorized sale. And comply with an order from the PLC chairman Rashad al-Alimi. No moving weapons from Aden to other provinces without state approval. That's not national disarmament. That's containment. It's the government saying keep weapons inside official institutions. And notice the nuance. This isn't no guns exist. It's guns under the chain of command. And this is where the PLC differs in motive. They crack down on open gun selling in cities for legitimacy as much as control, because a city with public gun markets doesn't look like a functioning state. So when the PLC restricts movement, distribution, and unauthorized sales, it's not just about stopping guns, it's about showing there's a chain of command. But here's the twist. This is Yemen. That order only works as far as the PLC can actually enforce it. Chapter 6, The Future of Yemen and Online Gun Bazaars. So where does this go next? Does authority reconsolidate or fragment further? If fragmentation continues, expect more of what Yemen already is. Escalating humanitarian crisis. More laws that change depending on how hostile the day is going, and more armed groups acting like governments. If authority reconsolidates, north or south, expect tighter public carry enforcement. Because governments don't share monopoly on force voluntarily, they reclaim it. And in the short term, as both sides squeeze the markets, a lot of small weapon shops have shut down. Some stay open in smaller towns farther away from authority. The open gun markets in main cities have effectively gone underground after crackdowns, raids, and seizures. Recent reporting shows arms dealers, including Houthi-linked networks, using X and WhatsApp to sell weapons away from public markets. And as long as demand stays high, Yemen's gun economy will keep evolving around whoever tries to control it. We don't know how long this civil war will last, but one thing is certain, Yemen is one tough country. As an American, I can respect a civilian's God-given right to defend themselves from tyranny. If you carry a gun every day, check out our CCW shorts and EDC sweatpants linked below, or visit relaxfittactical.com. Comment what country or state you want next, and don't be lame, subscribe.